As a director of photography, I thought this was the coolest looking saber battle ever.
The obsessive DP.
In this video, we will break down the evolution of the lightsaber, starting with episode 4 and ending at the most recent live-action lightsaber sequences from a cinematographer's perspective. As most of you know already, the lightsabers in the original 3 Star Wars films, 4, 5, and 6, were all completely created digitally. The light that you see was rotoscoped after the fact in post-production on top of a prop they used during filming. The prop was just a white stick that they colored after the fact. Because of this, the earlier film's sabers look very different compared to the look in the newest scenes, such as The Mandalorian. It's not an obvious change that the average fan can easily point out, but you definitely feel it as a viewer. You feel that the saber is more realistic, more cool looking, and it draws you in more. You want to see what happens next. This is exactly the type of thing that a director of photography brings to the table. Subtle nuances that enhance the experience of the audience. I mean, honestly though, for me as a kid, I thought those sabers in the original films looked pretty darn awesome. I was stoked on them. Let's look at the first 3 films. In these, they definitely didn't have the technology when they were filmed to use an actual light during the fights. Imagine using some fluorescent overhead lights like you see in an office, those little tubes, and smacking them together. It's super dangerous, but as you'll see later on, as technology advances, it starts to become a possibility. All these look like total fake, rotoscoped, post-production, after-the-fact visual effects. Just look at where the light would be in the scene, and if they're holding a saber right in front of them, or right in front of their face in a dimly lit environment, the light from that lightsaber would clearly shine on them just like a colored light would. But you don't see that. You just see this aura around the lightsaber that moves as the lightsaber moves. It never casts its own light. It's never casting light on the background or on the actors or anywhere that a normal, natural light would cast a light. You know, Darth Vader has a very reflective face mask, and you never see his lightsaber reflect in the face mask. That's clearly something natural would happen. You know, it was honestly a technology thing. That's why it never showed up in those earlier episodes of 4, 5, and 6. Especially in 5. In Empire Strikes Back, it is a very, very dark, they're almost silhouetted. And in that scenario, any light you're holding in front of you would show up. And it just doesn't. It really doesn't. I got excited for a second when I saw the red lights show up on Darth Vader's suit, but they're red lights on his suit. It's not a reflection of the lightsaber he's holding. Now let's transition to the prequels. There's a few scenes here where the lightsaber is casting a bit of light into the scene. So the director of photography on these started to realize, okay, these characters are holding a wand of light in their hand. That light should be playing on our scene somewhere. So there's a couple scenarios where it happens, but honestly, it's not that many. So here's a close-up with Qui-Gon, right? There's a close-up of Darth Maul, now it's a close-up of Qui-Gon. So in the close-up, on camera left side of his face, he has a green glow. But I know from lighting scenes, lighting people, from observing how light reacts, that this light here did not come from this. If this lightsaber was actually shining into his face, this entire half of his face would be green. Because it's actually a little bit, it's just to the side. If I'm holding something here, I have an arrow right here. It's gonna be lit. So this is clearly a backlight back here, probably just out of frame, way behind his head, because it's only hitting right here, about where my hand is. So that's in episode 1. Episode 2, things get a little feisty here. We got Yoda. So Yoda is completely CGI, right? So his lightsaber is completely CGI, probably created in the same type of environment, or at least it could be. But if he's CGI and his lightsaber CGI, possibly a light source created in a 3-dimensional environment, you could make it mimic light. But they don't. They could easily shine a green light on his face, make it look natural, because he is created in a CG environment. Super easy to light a CG environment, but they don't. Why not? Because it would be inconsistent. If his lightsaber was making him glow a certain color and no one else's is, you would see the difference and it would be just inconsistent. Oh, look at that. Okay, this is interesting. His force, what's that called? Electric? You guys are gonna kill me. I'm gonna have to look this up. Force lightning. His force lightning turned him blue. Look at that. It's actually shining onto his face. It's not on Count Dooku's, but that looks to me like there's a blue light on his face because he's CG. They can light it however they want. Again, guys, I'm not the biggest Star Wars nerd. I would love for you to look through these episodes, these movies, and tell me where I missed something. I've researched this for a few days, but there's possibly something I could have missed. And here, again, same thing, all done in post. Right here, it should definitely have a red on his face. There isn't at all. There's just this glow, this consistent glow that's done in post that moves in uniform as the lightsaber moves. It is not acting like a light shining on your face because it would look like this. If I had a lightsaber in my hand, it would be doing this to my face as it moves around because it's a light source. That's not happening in any of these movies. I got red and green because Star Wars. So later on in episode 2, the DP and the director finally got on the same page and were like, hey, these are lightsabers. They're casting light on our characters. Let's show that. So they go into a dark room. They kill the lights. You just see lightsabers glowing. It starts shining on his face, right? Let's look at that again. Look at this. Okay, this is where we're finally seeing the light from our lightsaber. Red all over his face, blue all over his face. They finally got a really dark scene. It doesn't look like the lightsabers ever hit. They never actually hit during this scene because they're actually holding lights. It's an actual light that they're spinning around each other, and it's making light actually wipe by the face. For the first time in Star Wars history, it's actually a lightsaber. Which is cool. All right, episode 3, and there's so many opportunities for light to show up on faces or on clothing or on environment, but it never happens. That I found, I could be wrong. Okay, this is a good example of when there should be light on his face. Okay, this lightsaber is about 4 inches from Anakin's face, and there's no light happening, no reflection in the eye, nothing. Which is interesting because they've done it before in episode 2. Again here, really close to Obi's face. Actually, I do see a little bit of light. It doesn't look very blue. Yeah, it's lit from straight on, so it's probably a light above him that's faking like the lightsaber light, because you can see in his eyes it's just a circle light source or a really tiny light source where it should be a big line in his eye. So that looks like they tried to do it there, but it's very subtle. No light on his face. All right, guys, the newest films are when things get a little more interesting. And these films, it's pretty clear to me that they're using light up tubes like a Astera Titan tube or Quasar Science. Now, it doesn't look to me like they use these tubes when they're actually fighting. Because when you're actually hitting sabers together, I think you would break them and the light would be ruined and it would not turn out well. They probably can't withstand a realistic hit, but it's possible. The technology in these types of lights are decently new, and lights such as the Astera tubes, they're used all over film sets. It looks to me that anytime they're just flexing their sabers or looking cool, wiping their sabers by their face or lighting it up and it's right next to the face and it's a dimly lit environment, that's when it's actually light affecting the scene, just like the scene in episode 2. It looks like though, when they're actually fighting, that the light is done after the fact. Here's the big scene where you see light affecting the scene. They looked really cool. It's lighting the snow under him right now. That is the first time it's ever lit an environment, and then clearly it lights his face when he brings it up to his face. Just like Finn, look at that. He is so blue. So this is when they're actually fighting. I can't tell if the lights are from the saber or if they used another production light to light the faces in that point, because they're actually using the sabers, smashing them together. I would assume that the only time light affects the scene realistically or actually practically is when they're not hitting them together. Right there, I do see blue on his face. There's some of the stuff you can do in post. It's definitely a lot more work though, and it looks just way better when you use a real light wand in your hand. So there's so much color on their face. It's totally different than the other scenes. Okay, look at her eyes. You can see both sabers. So this is probably real. They probably didn't hit them, but they're pushing the light wands together like the Astera tubes. And they're creating this effect after the fact, of course, but the actual practical effect of her being red and then blue and then the reflection in her eyes is all done in camera, which looks so cool for this episode. Again, light on the snow, really cool. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, here it's affecting the rock in the trailer. So I didn't go through this whole film. I just went through the lightsaber fight at the end and this right here. So that could be done in post, but it also could be real because it's lighting. It actually does look real. It looks like it's lighting because it's not only lighting it from the side, it's lighting it from underneath. It's lighting it from all angles that this would normally be lighting it. So that looks like a practical effect done in camera. And that's really the only one. The fight did not look practical. And maybe it was because it was done in daylight. So maybe the daylight just, ruined it. I think it was done in daylight. I'm not sure. All right, this is episode 9. We're seeing, again, a few more of those practical effects done in camera where the lightsaber is actually lighting. It's actually lighting his clothes a little bit here. It's lighting her face here. You see the reflection in her eye. Looks so dope. But it's way more subtle than episode 7. They went a little over the top in episode 7. They got super excited about it. This looks more natural, more realistic. Here's where I really start getting excited about this. In the most recent episode of The Mandalorian that came out a few weeks ago, I saw something that absolutely stood out to me. The light from Ahsoka's sabers was absolutely real and bright and affecting her face the entire time, even during the fights, which has never been done before in the history of Star Wars. It looks to me, and I could definitely be wrong, that they actually made the sabers light up for real, practically done in camera, not after the fact, and that they can take a bit of a hit because they were fighting with them. Just look at this. When the sabers are close to her pants, the light is strong where the saber is, and then it fades off up and down. It's actually affecting her clothing, as it would in real life. When they're up at her head, it affects her there, and only there. As they bounce from each side of her face, there's a nose shadow going back and forth, and it perfectly makes sense in a real life lighting scenario. There's a reflection in her eye, super bright, and as they get close to the magistrate, it affects her face too. So as she's fighting her opponent's face is also being affected by the sabers. The only explanation I have for this is that the sabers she is holding are actually lighting up. It would be possible, although very difficult, to create this effect with production lights or in post-production. You can do it, but to do it to this level of realism, I don't buy it. As a director of photography, I thought this was the coolest looking saber battle ever. And you might not see it like I see it, but I think that you feel it. The first time that I saw episode 7 trailer, I wasn't saying, oh, the lightsaber's lighting up her face, but I was feeling like this really cool saber sequence, and then I later realized why it was that cool. At the point of filming this, there has not been any behind the scenes photos of this scene released, at least that I can find on the internet, so I can't confirm. I'd say I'm over 95% positive that those sabers she is holding are actually really lighting up the scene. Especially given that the BTS photos showing the Darksaber are similar, like actually has lights on them. It looked like they affect them in post-production, but there are still lights coming out of that Darksaber, so Ahsoka's sabers have to be the same. It just makes sense. Alright guys, I think it's probably obvious I'm not the biggest Star Wars nerd. I don't know all the names, I don't know all the terms. I know some of them, I love the movies. If I screwed up, don't destroy me in the comment section, but it's okay. Just tell me where I was wrong so I can change it. I had to look up Ahsoka's name about 12 times because I kept pronouncing it Osaka or Usoki, but it's Ahsoka. I think, I hope. But that's it. Comment down below things I missed, things I could have gotten more into, things that you thought were cool, other movies I should check out. I love seeing all the nuances of lighting in a movie and what the director of photography and the director went through to get that final visual. If you're liking this content, please subscribe, hit the bell, and stay obsessed. Come back for more.